On this episode of RC Kicks, we're taking a look at this, the FlySky Noble NB4. If you've got a bit of cash in your pocket and you want to up your transmitter game, is this the way to go? Well, let's find out. Hi and welcome to RC Kicks. On today's show, well, we're doing something a little bit different versus the videos we've been putting out lately. We're going back to look at transmitters. Now, if you've been watching the show for a while, you know that I have quite a few and I have my favorites. So I want to talk about my favorites and then we're going to look at this, the Noble NB4. This is something a bit different for the channel as this is a little bit more mid-racing kind of field, where the kind of transmitters I've been using are the kind of things you would use just to take out your vintage buggies for a bit of a spin. So the first transmitter I fell in love with was this, the FlySky FSGT3C. Why do I like this so much? Well, it is pretty dirt cheap for what it is. £49.29 is what I currently saw it. It does fluctuate a little bit, so you can get better deals and it goes up and down a little bit. I'll put a link to all these in the description if you want to go and get all the hardcore specifications from them. But I am a big fan of this and I've had 3 of these. Now, the things that I like about it the most, you get a rechargeable battery included, so you can just charge it straight off a USB connector here, which is really nice, and you don't see that in some more expensive ones. Also, you can put 10 cars on it. So it's brilliant if you've just started out and you want to add another car and another car and you don't want to get loads and loads of these, then you can just swap between the cars and away you go. And the receivers are dirt cheap, £10.74 for an FSGR3F, and they're small and they're reliable. Binding is reasonably easy, so yeah, the only thing I can really knock them on is build quality is good but not amazing. Don't expect them to last you 5-10 years. I've had 3 and I've had 1 fail inside here. But for the money, they really get you off the ground, and they're a lot better than some you can get for more money. So that is the FlySky FSGT3C. And the next transmitter I fell in love with was this, the Radiolink RC6GS version 2. Now, don't let the looks put you off. I know it looks a bit clunky, but the features and functions of this transmitter are endless. Brilliant if you've got a clogbuster or something like that and you want to do 4-wheel steer. You have so many features and functions in this radio. It punches well above its weight. Now, you're looking at £67.71, link in the description. And the receivers, you get so many choices of different receivers. You can have inbuilt gyros. You're looking at £12.33 for a receiver. You can put 10 receivers into one unit. So again, you can have multiple cars, swap between the two. Don't want to have one for each car. No, that doesn't work at all. And that's the R4FGM and the R6F receivers. Very small, right up to quite large ones. I've got tiny little ones in things like my pan car. When your space is super limited, they are brilliant and they're cheap. Range is amazing and fidelity is there as well. And this is my go-to. I have 2 of these and I use them every single day without fail, no problems whatsoever. So that brings us on to this, the Noble NB4. Now, why have I got this on the show? Well, I've had the trusty Radiolink for a good year now, and I thought, well, can you get a lot more for your money? And that's why this came onto my radar. Now, it's not an extra £20 or so. There is a big jump between this being £67 and this is coming in at £140.44. So yes, you do need to have a bit more money in the budget. But maybe you're going to go racing, maybe you picked up a car that's more racing orientated, something like what I have here with my Mission front wheel drive car. So I thought, well, now's a good time to maybe look at moving up the food chain in transmitters, but do you get value for money, or should you just stick with something like the Radiolink? Well, that's where this comes in. Now, this is not top of the range at all. It is kind of the mid-range sort of racing class of transmitters. Right, let's open it up and take a look. And I know what you're thinking, just looking at the box, you're like, it doesn't scream mid-price, does it? I mean, it looks a bit naff from the outside, but let's not make judgment too soon, as this is just an outer box for an inner box. So, as soon as you open the brown cheap box, you start to see, oh, this looks a little bit different to what I'm used to. Once you pull out the sexy black box, yeah, we don't need that. You get this sexy box. Now, this is a bit more what you expect to see from a packaging when you're going mid-range. Don't forget, you can get transmitters for £30, £40, and this is a lot more than that at £144. So let's open it up and see what you get. So the experience of quality continues when you open it up. You get a nice graphic. It all feels very quality. They've even managed to put foam on the back of it to protect the equipment, and you get a sexy graphic on your box. So yeah, we start to see it looks premium. It looks like a firearm, doesn't it? So the first thing you notice when you pull it out, what is going on with this? Well, that is one of the first features. Let me just take this rubbish off. One of the first features that you will notice, this is a left hand and right hand controller. Yes, you have the choice. So all the people that are left-handed, you have a choice. You don't have to try and figure out how to use it. You can just turn it to any angle you like, and it doesn't matter how you like to drive. That is brilliant. This is on like a friction turn, and it is solid. It feels good, feels quality. From that point of view, you get a huge screen. And it is touch, which is brilliant to see. You get 3 buttons on this, or you get 2 dials and a button on this side. And if you know, when you turn it around, you get the same on the other side. What does that mean? Well, it means that left-handed and right-handed people get this same experience. It doesn't matter. So even though you can change the steering wheel, you get the same experience with your buttons. And it gets even better. You can program these buttons to be different from these buttons. So even if you're left-handed, you can use the buttons on one side and the buttons on the other side. Now, you've also got extra buttons up here, and you've got your trim, your throttle trim and your steering trim up here, and you have a dial here and another one here. So it is packed full of buttons, and the quality is there. It's completely different from this. It's so much a step above. If you use these, the quality is okay and you're fine with them, but once you step to something like this, it feels so different. And that's probably my biggest takeaway so far with this. It just feels so much more like quality. Everything feels more precise. There's no creakiness. So I can hear you saying, but there's no bottom and it won't stand up. Why is it like this? Well, you can use it totally like this. There is a battery in the handle. You can turn it on with the power button, and you can use it just like this if you want super light. But you do get a base just like all the others, and that is where the battery lives. Well, the second battery. But look at this more like a USB charger device. You can charge your phone. So if you're stuck at the track and your phone is going flat, yes, you can use your transmitter battery to actually charge it. But because there's a battery in the handle and a battery on the bottom, you have so much charge, it doesn't even matter. You can take it off, charge your phone, go race with this, put it back on afterwards. If you charge this up, you plug it in and it will then charge up the handle grip. It charges up by a standard USB, and you can discharge from a USB as well. Also, there's another party trick with this. Believe it or not, if you plug the USB in here and plug it into a computer, you can use it as a joystick. Go figure. So if you want to do some driving, you can. You can use it as a proper controller. I haven't tried it myself, but apparently it works fine. So there we go. So you just plug it in at the bottom and then you clip it into place. It's a bit stiff, but it's not going to fall off. Once you put this in, it really does feel like quality. This is all metal all the way around, and then you've got a charger at the bottom. You hold it down, it will start charging, and then it will actually start charging the top. You'll see the charging light across the top here when it starts charging the grip. If you want to turn on the device, you hold down this button at the top here. Eventually,
Welcome to Noble.
You get a greeting message, and then the screen comes to life. All screams quality. It really does. And that's probably my biggest takeaway at the moment, apart from these LED lights are way too bright and you need to turn them down in the settings, is it is a big step up. Just from that, before we talk about fidelity and features and functionality, the difference between these three is night and day. The jump from this to this and this to this is a bigger jump than these two. There's a smaller jump between these two, but this is a massive step forward. Really, really chuffed. So I think for me, I'm probably going to be moving away from these more and start using this. Now this has memory built in just like the others do, so you can bind multiple receivers to this. Right, I'm going to bring the camera in close and we're going to take a look at the GUI. As you can see, they've taken on board the app version like your iPhone. The first icon is to reverse your inputs. Then you've got EPA, which is setting your endpoints. Very easy. You've got left and right, and then you can just adjust the values to set your endpoints. Super fast with the plus and minus. Subtrim, steering, throttle, channel 3, channel 4. Steering exponentially, so you can set the curve that you input rate is set to. ABS, haven't really played with this yet, but you can set your braking, your delay, trigger point, timer, so you can set your laps.
Timer start.
You can also set the start and stop to individual buttons on the transmitter.
Timer start. 1 laps. 2 laps. 3 laps. Timer reset.
You also in the memory have every lap logged, so you can see the times per lap. You can also delete and remove them to start again. Assign, you can assign the buttons to whatever you want, start and stop the timer for instance. The model, which model you have selected, the name of it, you can copy it, you can export it as well. I'm just going to rename this to Mission FT from Schumacher as I fitted this into the car. As you can see, I do struggle a little bit, so don't expect iPhone responsiveness. Sensor, so you can have telemetry display. XR set, this is where you can bind a new receiver. Also set a servo if you're analog or digital. Also you can set the hertz if you want to in the custom section. Range test, you can actually see how your signal strength is. System, where you change your language, units, that kind of thing. Also, that's not all the apps, you actually have multiple screens. I'm just adjusting the volume because it's a bit loud. The vibration feature is really good because it's a tactile feedback. As you can see, you have a second screen, steering speed, steering mix, I haven't tried that. Your brake, your throttle, your return speeds. This is where you do your mixes, so this is where you would set up to do four-wheel steering, where your master is the front steering and the slave would be channel 3, which would be your rear steering. Boats, I have no idea. And display, so you can actually see the steering, the throttle and the channel move. I'm not quite sure what you'd use this for, but it's pretty cool. Now, as you would expect with a more mid-level transmitter, you can configure it to your liking. What do I mean by that? Well, it comes with a second grip. So if you have larger hands, you can exchange the grip for a large. The one that comes with it has an S for standard and L for large. You can also dial in the throttle position, also the strength of the throttle itself. There is in the manual explaining how you use an Allen key to adjust the trigger mechanism. You can also do the same thing for the steering to adjust its spring tension rate to how you like it. All these things are premium options that you don't see on more entry-level kits. So that's enough talking about the transmitter. Let's see it actually do something. So I took the included FGR4 receiver and I fitted it in my Mission FT car. This is probably the most serious racing modern car that I have in the collection. As a lot of you will probably know, I do tend to collect more vintage stuff or re-released vintage, but this is a modern track weapon and it's my only front-wheel drive car. Now, I don't do much racing, but believe it or not, there's a track not far from me, so I'm hoping to get back into doing a bit of racing and maybe I will run this car. So what have I got in it at the moment? Well, it's got a Hobbywing, or what is it? It's an Easy Run 3652 brushless setup with a Max 10 Easy Run Hobbywing setup combo. I got them together. And the servo, which again is very important if you're running a more upmarket transmitter receiver, is a Savox SC1252 half height. So that's the specifications. I will put a link in the description to all the stuff that's in this car as well. Right, let's fire it up. Now I'm just using a dinky battery just for now, so let's fire it up. Sorry, it's a bit noisy.
Welcome to Noble.
I do like that. That's very, very classy. So there we go. Now it's plenty of power, to say the least, for a front-wheel drive car. But the main thing that amazes me the most is just the fidelity, the step up in fidelity. Now, obviously, I'm running a decent servo. Yes, it's half height, but it is a Savox servo, so it's not a cheap Banggood special. But with this transmitter, the fidelity is amazing. I am super impressed with that. And it is so responsive. So from that point of view, I am blown away. It is amazing. It's probably the best I've ever seen on one of my cars. So yes, I can understand that once you start getting into racing electronics, you really do start to see where your money goes. Now, one thing that's a bit strange is in the manual, it actually tells you the response rate of this transmitter, but it's completely wrong. I've also looked at a few other people's reviews on this, and I think everybody can agree that the response times they're talking about is rubbish. Their response times are basically set as a standard Traxxas transmitter or just a generic transmitter. This is not that. I am super impressed. When I let go and it returns, you can see the wobble transmitted through the servo. It is beautiful. Now the problem is my driving is not quite as good as this setup that we have here. Right, let's take it for a quick spin and then we'll come right back and I'll do a wrap-up review. So there you go, super chuffed with it, so much so I've actually splashed some cash and I'm getting more receivers to put in my race cars. Yes, I will be using this a lot more from now on and I'm really impressed. But I won't be using this for my very old vintage cars that I drive maybe once a year. Even though I like to have them fully running, I only use them in the garden maybe once a year. So it is a little bit hard to say I'll spend a £29 on a receiver that gets used once a year. And that's where I think my cheaper transmitter units will carry on being used because they're like £10 to £15 instead of doubling that for a receiver. So when you have this many cars, it's quite an expensive undertaking to change to more upmarket receivers. But cars like this and my Formula One cars, for instance, or any modern track car, definitely needs to have this transmitter combination in it to really get the most out of it. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.